Yeah, well, we're here with Grit Branded today. This is something that I've created. I'm Brad Pryor, and it's about what's inspired me to be who I am today and the people around me that's inspired. And I'm with my buddy Brett Baird over here, and he's going to talk a lot. He always does. That's why we like to, he's best for the introduction. But we're really going to hone in on the underdog. We're going to hone in on the guys that are at the top, but we're all the same when it comes down to it. And I really want to focus on that because that's my grit inside my body and what makes me push harder and harder every day to be the person that makes somebody better, not necessarily me. I get better when everybody else gets better. To me, that's the way I look at my lifestyle and the lifestyles that are created around me.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, number one. But Grit Branded, I want to know what grit means to you. How do you define grit?
I mean, there's not even such thing as a wall for me to climb over or go through. I feel invisible, and I feel invisible because I'm not cocky or conceited. I'm invisible because people inspire me. The things I get involved in, they start clicking. They start making a difference. We work with children all over the United States. We work in the rodeo industry to 4-H's, FFAs, to the child advocacy centers. To me, that's my grit of all that stuff that I harness in my heart. I was given an opportunity, and I feel like if I didn't give that opportunity back to everything that inspired me or how I got here, I'm nobody. So that's my grit. And I don't even want to, I'm not looking to be somebody or be a personality on a podcast to get famous. I want people that are maybe me at 10 years old and sitting there looking like I don't think I'm ever going to be anybody. But one day I was, and I wasn't trying to be who I am today. I was just feeling my way through life. And if it's going to help with what we talk about, and they know, hey, well, he went through all of that, I can be somebody to that level. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's that grit that's going to push into everything that we inject ourselves into.
Well, you talk about being invisible too. And, it's not about my origin story. I've been officially with Rafter P maybe a couple of years now, going on a couple of years, but I've known you much longer than that. We have a very similar background, who we ran around with as kids and that sort of thing. But you talk about supporting the kids, child advocacy, and all the FFA programs. And, we probably spent more time in the middle part of our lives at FFA auctions together than anywhere else. And I think that's something that people don't understand. They see the brand, they see what you've built and what the company is able to do as a whole. But they overlook sometimes the reality of how much investment back into the youth that you do. And it's not just now. This has been going on for decades. Like this isn't a recent thing. And I think that's something that people need to understand. And so talk a little bit more about why. Why are the kids so important to you?
Well, to me, if I wasn't ever given an opportunity from the guy that helped me, that rented a tractor to me to dig holes, to build fence, to build Rafter P, I was just trying to survive. If there wasn't people that gave me those opportunities, I would never be where I'm at today. So if I'm not out here talking about it, like I came from a single mom, I didn't have any money. It was me and a Hispanic guy, and we made things work. And to me, that's really what created what Rafter P is today. Is just starting from nothing and having nothing. I'd plow at night to pay for a welder that a guy bought for me, I'd go build fence during the day and sleep for 2 hours. That's just, to me, that's that burning desire inside of me. Like you're not gonna win against me or my team or somebody I love. And I want to inject that into children. Everybody I talk to or I can make a difference in, I want that same feeling to be in their heart, in their soul, and not to be put down or feel like the world's against them. Because I think we've all felt that way many a times.
Yeah, the world against them. I think that's probably the source, the genesis of what creates that fire in the first place. Is you don't want a kid to think that there's no chance.
No,
and they can feel like the world is stacked against them, literally. Based on how they're parented, if they're parented, means and availability of different things to be able to go do the things that they want to go do, and you just can't do it. We were poor growing up. We weren't broke, but we were poor growing up. And that's something that I think you understand. And when you're trying to help people recognize that these kids, some of them just need a shot. They just need a chance. And when you feel those flames and support them in ways that are, in some cases, unorthodox. You say, well, what do you mean going to an auction's unorthodox? No, but being a part of a pro rodeo team and giving kids a chance to travel to be places, to get their name out there and do something, might be the one step they needed to overcome the hurdle that was just barely holding them back. They could be the next big thing, but they're not without the right kind of support. And I think people recognizing your heart in that way is challenging because they see now what you've built, but they forget where it all started. So let's go back in time. Let's start. How did it really start? You said that, you had to plow at night, and you had to go, buy a welder, a used welder, and find a way to do things. But how did it really start? How old were you? Where were you at? What was going on with Brad?
Well,
Day one?
Basically when I started working, I was 12 years old. I worked for J.J. Hurley, the Trailer Ranch in Poetry, Texas, or Eugen Valley, I guess you would say. And in the meantime, I grew up with the Crawfords. So Pat Crawford, Jan Crawford.
Good people.
Really good people. And we still have a relationship to the day. As I was working for JJ, I'd stay over and hang out with Jeremy and Kurt, and we'd rope, and I cleaned stalls to learn how to rope. I didn't have a horse. My mom would drive me to work every summer to JJ's and drive me to Crawford's, or Crawford's could pick me up because it wasn't far. They were in the Union Valley area too. So starting all that, I fell in love with the ranching world. And I grew up in Mesquite, Texas, moved to Roy City when I was in 7th grade. And I decided I like 7th grade so much to spend another 7th grade.
You like it once, let's try it twice.
Me and the principal and the superintendent got to know each other real well because I had no back down in me. So I pretty much was an ISS or expelled the whole year of my first 7th grade trip. So it was kind of like jail to me. Like it was my first trip. All I did was get in trouble all the time. So I was fighting a bunch of demons coming from the big city, going to a small town. So working into that ranching industry kind of worked all those kinks out of me naturally. And that's why I feel like I do what I do with this stuff a lot. And so going through all that, working for Pat after JJ, which is a lady, by the way. She's tough. After that, I went to work for Mark Lanning, Twisted Oil Ranch in Rockwall. He was building it. Back up. Richard. I went to work for Richard Neal. Richard Neal was the guy that cut above metal buildings, was building metal buildings and building fencing for Mark Lanning. So Richard had a heart attack, decided he wanted to get out of the ranching industry, the welding industry, and get into the ranching industry. So that's when we went to work for Mark Lanning. So I worked for Mark from then until I was 20-something years old.
Yeah, and Twisted Oil's not a small operation either.
No,
that's a real deal.
We had 100-something brood mares and multiple studs, and we had customers too. So it was a big mare motel and stud barn, and it was a very busy world. But I learned how to build infrastructure, and then you realize what I was really learning when I was learning from a young age. We were laying out, turnouts, and we were laying out, alleyways to keep, studs off of mares or geldings, fighting over the fence, the runway, all that kind of stuff, water lines, power, all that kind of stuff. Building that place taught me the business what we do today on the farm and ranch side.
What I believe, though, is that's awesome for infrastructure and practical application that you might use down the road. But really what ranching, what the farm lifestyle really teaches you is that character and tenacity to just shut up and get it done. Crying about it doesn't make the water leak stop. Crying about it doesn't get the barn built. Crying about it doesn't get the stalls cleaned. You got to go out and you just got to get it done. And I think, earlier in your career, that hard-nosed is black and white. There is no gray area. We're doing it this way because this is the right way we're going to do it. And I think that people lose track of that too, that you have to have that drive. But really, it didn't start through the success of Rafter P building things. It started way back when you were a teenager. Mm-hmm. And something was implanted in you, that character that just can't be shaken. And I think that's important for people to understand is there was no silver spoon. Brad Pryor wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth and handed him some sort of a company. It was literally built from the ground up. There was nothing there except the drive to want to be successful and earn your own keep. And I think that's important.
That's the biggest thing to emphasize. Number one, I had a lead spoon, not a silver spoon.
I didn't even have a spoon, Brad. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we ate with our hands. We didn't have soap. But going back to that, like I wanted to earn my own keep. is basically what inspired me to keep pushing harder and harder. I watched my mother struggle. She didn't have very much good success with men, but I can tell you this lady is probably the strongest woman I've ever met in my life. And one thing I've learned over the years is when I have told my story, I've told too much about my story, and I kind of put my mother down when I wasn't trying to. My mother is everything to me, and we are very, very hard-nosed people. I feel like I look like my dad. Never met my dad, but from the pictures I saw, I mean, I'm built like him. He had a beautiful face like me, but I got my mom's pug nose and blue eyes, but I got her and her daddy's drive as far as just wanting to fulfill themselves, take care of themselves, not want any more out of life, just to take care of themselves. But to me, that was a very cool feeling to have and instilled from a single mom that raised me and my sister, 3 jobs. Our father's not paying their child support. My mom still figured it out. And I look back on those times as hard, and some of the things I said to mother, I wish I could retract because it was terrible. But all I saw was what was out there, and I wasn't getting. And my mom was giving me more than whatever else was getting. And that's what's made my heart what it is. And this day I get better by thinking about those moments because, pizza on Friday night was all we got. There was no eating out. And my mom, but I missed the fish sticks and all the things that we had that were homemade to some degree. And I feel like all those kids that were getting to go out to eat every night and not spend any time with their parents, whatever, I think they missed out.
See, I think in long format, you're describing what grit really means to you.
Right.
It is hard to capture it in just a handful of words. When it means something to you, it's part of the fiber that makes you who you are. It's difficult to describe in just a couple of words. It's more of a story to explain. So I'm glad you're taking the time to explain to people where it comes from and helping them understand what it truly means to you as well.
Right. Well, and I feel like it's a word that's thrown around a lot now. People are grasping on, they want to be tough. They want, they got the grit inside of them. And it's a little bit offensive to me because I look around and I watch how they're using it. And it's like you're using it to distort it. Like you're making it nothing. You're canceling it, so to speak. And I don't believe in that. And I want to show what grit really is. Well, and people to know me, that don't know
to you. That's important. It means something to you. It's not just a label or a brand. It genuinely means something to you. Just like Rafter P obviously means something to you. 100%. So you're a sexy 7th grader, rolling into Royce City. You get into
rolling hot.
So you get into the ranching business. Purely on a work basis, trying to essentially understand what it takes to be. You like to be around those people, and you had to work to be there, obviously, right?
Right.
So that happens. You get into the Twisted L. You start laying out pins. You start putting in infrastructure, things of that nature. So when does Rafter P start for you?
Well, before we get in that, let me back up because I forgot one important person. Really.
No, I'm here. You don't have to say anything. I'm right here. I can hear you. There's man. Somebody else. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, sidebar from you, baby. Actually, when I moved to Royce City, my mother sold insurance in Royce City. Come from Mesquite, that's how we got there. And there's an older gentleman, James Summers, that would come into town and he'd pick old school, would pick up the banker's cars and pick up the pharmacist's car, and he'd take them to his house and he'd wash them and detail them. He'd leave his vehicle with him. Well, he bought insurance for my mother, and he got to know my mom. And like, hey, I have a little hellion son that I don't know what to do with. And I was dragging a mower and a weed eater up and down all the streets in Royce City, mowing yards and hustling, just trying to find a way. Well, I was mowing a yard across the street from him one time, and he was over detailing cars. He came over and he said, I know your mother. I said, okay. It's pure...
Good for you.
Yeah. No. But anyway, it's just like that hard nose in me. I was like, I don't care. You're like, I'm here. I'm on the yard. What do you need me for? But he got to me. He said, well, when you get done, come over here. I'm going to drink of water or soda pop, whatever you want. I said, okay. Well, he gave me that olive branch. Like, he could tell I was roughed up, pissed off at the world, had enough. F everybody. And I went over there, and he's over detailing a car and waxing. Well, 4 hours later, we detailed two vehicles together and drank 2 Coca-Colas and a water. And me and him became really good friends. He introduced me to J.J. Hurley in the Trail Ranch because he was detailing their vehicles. So that's how everything really generated into the ranching world, from meeting my mother, having a relationship with him coming across the street and knowing what the walls I was up against. And I didn't know I was up against walls. I was just fighting.
Right.
I didn't care. I was just fighting. And from there, all that's what's so important about everything that people don't understand. It just takes one little thing, one conversation.
One positive
and it
nudge
turns everything in somebody's life completely around.
Yep, I agree.
And if I don't open my mouth, I'm injustice to Mr. Summers, or disjustice to Mr. Summers. But he's passed away today. But he was just a great guy, and he always, as I grew up and as we got into Rafter P, he'd come by and he'd stop by the office, talk to my mother when she worked at the office, and where's Brad? I want to talk to him. He's always my biggest fan, and always so proud. But that's the storyline before how it all started. And then when we got into Rafter P, that's another gym came along. I not see a gym like a treasure. Donald Duncan. He lived over in Pinal, Greenville, Texas. Not most people know where Pinal is, but
It's a small community in Greenville, Texas, people, all right? Everybody relax.
at the time I was.
We say Pinal, by the way. It sounds way easier when you say it that way.
Yeah.
You say how'd you say it again?
Pinal.
No. How'd you say it the first time?
Penal.
Yeah. Pinal is so much easier.
Yeah, penal. What I like, just like pinch. That's the way I say it, pinch. But I was working at Twisted L in Greenville. We built a place in Rockwall. He sold it. We built a place in Greenville, and I got to know this girl at the co-op. Was dating her, ended up marrying her for a short amount of time. Had my oldest son with, Brody. As she's working up there, Mr. Duncan came in there all the time to buy feed. He chatted it up. Got to know each other. He needed help with things, so I started helping him. Never asked for no money. Just busy work. In between when I wasn't working, I was working for free. Mm-hmm. So, anyways, in that amount of time, Twisted L, 9/11 happened. The guy I worked for fell in hard times, and I had to be let go. I lived there. My vehicle was paid for there. Like, my salary was there, and I'm like, what am I going to do? I have no idea. Like, I have no money. I have no credit. Like, I have no vehicle. I mean, I ended up getting a vehicle, but Mr. Duncan came along. He's like, tell you what, I need some fence built. I need this built. And I know a guy, and I started talking to all these people. The good thing is all the relationships with talking to all these people, bringing horses in and out of the ranch. I had those connections. I didn't really realize it. Mm-hmm. But I just reached out to a couple people I know. If you need anything built, let me know. I can build some fence for you, build some pins. Well, Mr. Duncan would let me plow at night. He went up to J&I Metal, and he bought me a brand new slick 225 Bobcat. And I was just stoked. I ain't never had nothing brand new in my life at that time. With leads, and let me borrow some bottles with a torch. And we put it in an old $1,500 truck that I scrounged up the money to get, that I put more oil than I put gas in it, with some magnet signs on the side of it. It was pimp. Sexy. Had more rust than paint, too.
If you didn't grow up and have one of those trucks, something was wrong with your childhood.
People would kill for it now. Yeah. Like, at the time, I was mad at it every day.
Yeah.
But
minus the badness, I had a very similar truck growing up.
Yeah. And so he said, well, Brad, this is what I'm going to do. So you help me when you can. I'll pay you $20 an hour, you come, which was way more than I should have got paid. I already knew it was way generous. Mm-hmm. He said, whenever you got time, I need to plow, I need to pick up hay, I need to cut hay. Whenever you can do it, you squeeze in your schedule in between whatever you got going on to make money to survive, blah, blah. So he let me borrow a trailer, tractor, and all this stuff. And then as I got more successful, he started making me rent it, which was not a resentment thing to me, because he was teaching me something, again, I didn't know I was being taught. Mm-hmm. He didn't need the money. He just needed me to start putting money back and thinking about, you're going to have to buy a tractor one day. You're going to have to buy a trailer. All these things he was teaching me was the stuff that I needed to learn and know that this stuff's not always going to be free. You can't make free money all the time. This stuff cost him money. I mean, he bought it and he let me use it. Now he let me rent it to know that I need to move on, which I did. And I repainted the tractor, top to bottom. It was a 4010 or a 41 something 4100. Anyways, I painted top to bottom, redid it. I painted the trailer, put brand new tires, and when I was done with everything, I returned it back to him. Mr. Duncan was bawling, with just couldn't believe it. Mm-hmm. He said, "Well, here, I'll give you all your money back. I don't even need to rent." I said, "No, sir, you did me a favor. The least I could do is return this better than what I got it."
Yeah.
And people lose that. They don't know. They don't understand it no more.
Yeah.
Like you get something, you use it, you bring it back, even if it was a gift of kindness, you give it back to them better than what you found it. And that I taught that myself somehow, but somebody along the way taught that to me.
Right.
And that was the biggest reward I had going on to the big boy world, which Rafter P was started off with me and a Hispanic guy, and it turned into one guy at a time.
So just building fence is how it started.
Yeah, I honestly, I didn't want to build metal buildings. I hated them. I really did. Like I didn't like being in the air very much. Mm-hmm. Every time I was in the air, it wasn't on anything safe. So I learned how to bounce real well.
Did you, right?
Yeah, and I wasn't fat at the time, believe it or not.
So why Rafter P? Where'd the name come from? I mean, I know where the P.
Well, you're trying to get a tear out of me today, ain't you? So I told myself, I learned that, and forgive me if I'm wrong about this. My mom probably kill me if I get the wrong date or the wrong age, because I'm nothing against her. But I didn't learn. I had a different father till I was probably 13 or 14, and my mom's family is from Grapeland, that area. So every summer, Memorial Day, we'd go down. They'd have their big family get together and I'd go to the graveyard and all that stuff. Well, we made a little pit stop in Emory, Texas on the way back from that trip, and we never went that way. We lived in Roy City, Texas, so there wasn't no reason to go through Emory. Mm-hmm. So my papaw at the time, from my real dad, or biological dad, was dying of diabetes. He's a watermelon farmer. So she wanted me, before he passed away, he always thought a lot of me, so did my mama. Mm-hmm. She wanted me to meet them before they did. So the whole way there was probably the longest hour and a half, 2 hour drive of my life. My mom was explaining to what's fixing to happen, and I was totally confused. It made a lot of sense because of what I've been through with my adopted father. And I'm like, okay. So we went in here, and my original last name's Fletcher. I'm from the Fletcher clan from Emory, Texas, which is not a beautiful thing, but anyways. So when I was thinking for a name for Rafter P, it flows off your tongue so normal now. At the time, it just took so when you're coming up with a company name, there's so many things that go through your head, and you're like, I got to make this right. Mm-hmm. I got to make this is something I'm gonna care about. It's my baby.
Yeah, one shot.
Yeah, I'm not just hustling no more. Cause I hustled for a year and a half, 2 years before I actually opened my business. Cause it was just trying to survive. Now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get legit. I'm gonna get a checking account with my name on it.
Look out.
I'm gonna get a DBA. You know what I mean? So I need to get that DBA, some ink with some right words. So my sister's father, which is my adopted father, gave me the last name Pryor. Not a remarkable person. Nobody I really care to talk about. He never gave that last name a meaning to me. So instead of changing my name back to Fletcher, because I was 20-something years old at the time, I said, you know what? I'm gonna make this P mean something. Mm-hmm. So that's how Rafter P's name came about. Was Pryor, it was so dead to me once I learned it wasn't not my real last name. It really was just deaf to me. I didn't like hearing it because it wasn't me. I was like, I've always felt as bad as I feel in my skin sometimes, I always felt natural. That don't make sense, but it didn't feel natural. It felt like it wasn't me. Mm-hmm. And the day that I signed that paperwork at the Hunt County Courthouse at the clerk's office and put that on that DBA, and that lady helped me fill it out and spell it. all the good stuff I need to spell because I can't spell. I can count, but can't spell. But that my last name meant something to me over a stupid piece of paper. But I was making it mean something. And so that's how that Rafter P construction name started.
See, to me, that comes back to the grit, though, of you saying, in spite of folding up and retreating back to something, a name that you hadn't even taken or known up until that point, is you wanted to make the P stand for something. You know, I think it's something that stands, you know, morally for something or ethically for something. It's not just business. It was more than that to you. And, you know, I think it's a great story. I think it's a great for people to understand that, you know, you could have called it anything in the world. You could have named it whatever you wanted. But because of that grit that's inherently built into you, I'm going to stick with the P, and I'm going to make the P stands for something. And here we are 21 years later. And
23.
20 how many?
Almost 23.
See, I led you right into it. So 23 years.
Yeah.
How would you describe the 23-year ride, the journey?
Shoot. Probably the first 10 years, pure misery. Not misery. You punch me in the nose and come back, and I want you to punch me again. I want you to punch me harder because I'm not going to feel it, because then you don't make me mad. So game over, right? So that was a feeling over and over again to me, and I wouldn't let it go. And I started I used to fire help by fighting them, you know, and that's how they got fired. They said one cross word to me, it was game on in the front yard or in the shop. I didn't care. That was just mean. And I looked at myself one day and like, you gotta change this because you're getting older, and this is not how you handle day-to-day life.
Yeah.
You don't need to be fighting no more. I mean, you fought your whole life. Give it up. Be a professional. So in that 8 to 10 year mark, you know, I started cleaning things up in my life, and I didn't even drink at the time at all. And every once in a while, a margarita or something, but not hardly drink at all. Just pure adrenaline every day, wanting to fight, go through life and be something. And when we turn that page of, okay, well, let's just make some really badass product. Let's do what nobody else wants to do. Let's employ a bunch of badasses. Let's get drawings. Let's get off the napkins and the pens, and let's draw freaking real drawings, and let's get some customer service. Let's put this together. The trucks need to match. The trucks need the same color, the same look. Like, it just started. Once it started, it was like another fire. It was like anything else I get involved in. It's like, I can't just be a toe in the water. It's got to be, you know,
all in.
All in.
All in.
Yeah. Body slam. Yeah.
Well, so the first 10 years are rough. I think anybody that owns a small business would probably agree that the first part's always the toughest, right?
The only thing I disagree with is they say when you make it 5 years, everything's going to be okay. That is the biggest wad of crap I've ever heard in my life. Because they've never been in the construction business. They didn't go through 07 and 08. You know, this all started in 02. So, you know, when you go, you know, that's my 5-year career, 07, 08 happened. And I'm like, whoa. This thing's supposed to get magically better. Well, boys, talking about another fight. You know, but I've never laid off anybody in 23 years.
I think that's worth saying again.
Yeah, I haven't. In 23 years, I haven't let nobody go. Even, you know, not trying to get too ahead of the story, but when COVID happened, you've been in our office. Those phones, it's never quiet. Never. Like, I go in there, I get anxiety because there's just so much going on, or you're getting people tagging me wanting information about something. When COVID hit, that was the quietest 3 to 4 weeks of my life. And first time in my life, I was scared. I was really scared. To say something about my team is that, you know, there was people coming to me that I know that couldn't afford it, but they're ready. They were good to not take a check. And that meant a lot to me. And we never had to do that, but it was just awesome.
Yeah. I think when people start to show their true character, and because, you know, you think you know somebody, and for whatever reason, I don't know if it's just the way we're wired or human nature, but it usually takes some sort of a turmoil or a tragedy or a struggle before people really understand what the other person means to them.
Yep.
And, being guys and from the redneck world that we're from, emotion was never a thing. Instead of talking, it was easier to fight than it was to talk about something. Feelings and emotions.
That's a lot easier fighting than crying. I promise you that.
What are those, right? And so I think when something like that happens and then you get a chance to see what you mean, I think the emotion that you're feeling is you understanding what you mean to those people, and it makes them mean even more because they were not being selfish. Right. The world we live in today is an I, serve me world first and everybody else second. And when you surround yourself with people that don't interested in just helping themselves, but helping the team around them, with the leadership of doing that, I think it really hits home when you have an opportunity to recognize that those people really do appreciate everything, all the grit, all the blood, all the sweat, all the tears. Very few of them, if any of them on today's team, were with you 23 years ago when you were out there just trying to scratch together a living, right? Mm-hmm. But now look at you, and that attitude of people meaning something. It's not just a check. It's not just a job. They're not just customers. They're not just employees. They're people. And people are complicated and they're confusing, but they're also crazy valuable to you. And I think that, you showing emotion about what that meant to you, just to me, shows how pure that really is.
Well, and for once in my life, I wasn't a burden. I was actually a resource. Right. And that's a different feeling as a person coming up from my life, is you always feel like you're a burden, even though you'll never show it. But you always feel like somebody's trying to help you, you're a burden. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And they're trying to make you better, trying to do all the things. I, for once, felt like I was a resource. And people cared about me, and people cared to support what I was doing because they relied on me. Mm-hmm. So I was a resource. Mm-hmm. And it was a different feeling. I never had that feeling before, and that's why I'm emotional about it, because it's like you go through all that, and you're like, dang. I didn't even know what to say. I really didn't. I was shocked, when it all came about. But, starting back from the start, it was, it was a lot of long, it was 7 days a week, literally. Burned through 2 marriages over it, and got 4 beautiful kids that I would never trade for. I've raised other kids, just friends of friends or whatever. But I love kids, and going through. I literally work 7 days a week. When I got through working paperwork at night, I get up and start hauling equipment at 4 o'clock in the morning, and then I go run crews. It was literally. Basically up till probably 7, 8 years ago, it was me and 3 or 4 people in the office. Now I don't even know how many we got.
Oh, it's
in 2 offices.
Yeah.
I don't even want to count. It gives me anxiety. But that's how much Rafter P has grown over the years, is going from the guy that was in the truck doing the bidding and didn't even have a receptionist. My mother and Frank. I don't know if you ever met Frank Bell. He's the original OG of the drawings. So. But me and him worked together before too. So, but going through all that really birthed a lot of things, and it birthed relationships that I need to get rid of, and it birthed relationships that I needed. Mm-hmm. And I found a lot of cool people along the way that want to pull the rope the same way I pull it.
Yeah. Harder
than they pull it.
Well, even with success, and that's the other thing too, is that people define success in many different ways. And I think somebody that's superficial about it is saying, well, it's money. Well, money's only one piece of success. Happiness at home, having your kids, knowing that they're healthy, knowing that you're, investing in them, the same characteristics that will make them good people, good productive citizens in the world once they graduate and move on into life. Those things are just as important. And I feel like Rafter P is so much more than just a company, but the brand itself represents all those sorts of characteristics too. And you start talking about the style of customer that once was and the style of customer that we now serve. One's not better than the other, but they have bigger aspirations. They have a bigger checkbook. They have bigger dreams, bigger desires to want to do things. And what I like is that if you can dream it, we can build it. I like the idea that it doesn't matter what's in their mind's eye. Not only can you tell them we'll build it, but we'll draw it for you. We'll show you what it looks like. We can match what it is you have your vision for, and then we'll make it come to life. And I think that is something that should be, applauded. I think we should be excited about the fact that it's only getting bigger. there's no stepping back. There's only stepping forward. And so all of the people that played a role, employees don't stay forever. Things happen. People move. Some situations happen. People, age out and retire. All sorts of things happen. But all along the way, you creating a team that still has that nucleus and that core of belief that you have, that you got to be, what I've noticed is that the high performers have something in common. They have a little bit of that grit that you're talking about. You don't just take no for an answer because somebody said no. I love when we have a meeting and somebody says, well, they said they didn't want to do it. And that blink, that stare that you give them, like, oh, so what'd you do about that?
I already put the pencil in their head. Yeah.
That's not good enough. Yeah, there's another answer. There's another way. Yeah. So Rafter P starts really with just desire to provide for yourself. Now you provide for countless families, and I know that there's an anxiety that comes with that, but it's only because you care. It's only because you take it serious, right? And so now we're to a point where the company's grown, the number of employees have grown, the number of offices have grown, the reach that you've got has grown. There's marketing, there's websites, there's all these different things that are going on. But Rafter P is not just building barndominiums. Rafter P is custom homes. It's really custom anything if you want to get down to it. So talk about that part of it, the custom anything aspect. What sort of sense of pride does that give you to know that when you started building fences, now somebody can have an idea and there's nothing they can come up with that you go, yeah, I won't do that.
Right. And what's cool is people come to me along the way and like, we can't find somebody to do this. The Hottie Toddy barn is Chuck Pearl. That started off with a 30 by 50 over in, I'm going to butcher this, Plano areas probably. And then we end up building this, remodeling a pool, building a over-the-top cabana, putting greens. A 30 by 50 turned into, in the back, behind all this beautiful stuff, new fencing, new driveways, all these things. The guy just didn't want nobody telling him no. Well, me and him matched up great. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know how to do a lot. I mean, we put some doors in there that were $80,000 because he wanted a glass awning when it folded out. Okay, I'll find it. I'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. And we did that. And that's happened over and over and over again. We have architects that reach out to us to help them understand still lines, finished walls, all this stuff. Like, they're architects, but they don't understand the metal world. They're used to sticks and bricks and all the metal studs and all that kind of stuff. When it comes to pre-engineered building, we do all that. We can help explain all that stuff to them. So as I seen that stuff, I was like, or getting reached out to be involved in that stuff, the more I'm like, okay, well, I got something here that people are just either too lazy to do or I'm good at it, one or the other. So when we started putting all these projects together, it was, the next memorable project I can remember is I met Jade Webster, which talking about personality. Mm-hmm. When I met him, you would have never thought the personality that y'all know is who I met that day. We met on that piece of property when there was nothing out there, nothing. And you look at the beautiful places today. And he showed up in side by side. Not one that's pimped out with MVP, whitetails all over, and not all the water bird, all the things.
Right.
He had slides on and some, I call them sleeping shorts, some workout shorts, whatever, and a T-shirt. I'm like, what in the crap did Becca get me into now? Like, this dude ain't gonna want to build nothing. Like, I was sitting there in my brain, I was already judging this guy, and I never should have, and that's why you never should. But as we got to talking to him, our two ways of our spirits and the way we think about things started coming together. And like, this dude wanted to build a deer facility. Boy, I knew nothing about a deer facility. And he's like, well, we need to control, we need to keep their body heat at this during the summer when it's 100. Like, it starts talking all this madness. Okay, I'll figure it out. I got it. Yep. You ever done this before? Nope. But I'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. Next day, we flew all over the state of Texas, going to different ranches. And I was walking around drawing every one of these buildings because none of these ranches that we went to had drawings of facility. It was build a building and build the facility within the building.
Right.
We're going to chalk some stuff on the floor, and we're going to do this and that. So I'm over drawing all this because he liked this piece of this project, this piece of this project, this piece of this project. And then, of course, when you get to the Stephanie's office and the lodge and all that there's nothing out there in the world that would ever suit them to what they want. But space, they need to understand that. Mm-hmm. So we started whipping out drawings, and the next thing you know, that was 6-7 years ago, and we've built multiple facilities and top-notch facilities and known for it now. And that's off of me just saying no, but filling out my customer and making sure what I'm seeing is either not lining up or is lining up. Mm-hmm. And it didn't line up for what I saw originally. And thank God it didn't.
Yeah. Because still a customer today.
Yeah. I mean, we're building a casita right now. We're going to build his lodge in, Athens. So it just never, most of our customers we work for over and over and over again.
Well, I'm glad you brought him up. That's an important thing too. That repeat business. A lot of home builders, I'm sure, have a customer, they're satisfied to some degree, and they never talk to them again. That is not the way it is at Rafter P. I can't tell you how many times I've been handed a contract, says, hey, go get the site ready. And by the way, this is a customer we've had for 7 years. Make sure you treat he or she with this type of respect. They've spent lots of money having us do lots of projects for one simple reason. They trust us.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. I think that's been lost, in this whole make a buck, cut corners where you can world that we live in sometimes, to go the extra mile and to make sure that a customer is not only happy, but willing to talk about you. And the next thing that comes up, because those customers have more ideas, make sure you call Rafter P. Don't even call anybody else, but call Rafter P. We got to get them back out here to do something. Right. I think that's important.
Now, this is a special 2-part series with Grip Branded and the introduction of who Rafter P Construction is and how Brad Pryor turned it into an icon that it is today. Each and every Tuesday, catch a new episode of Grip Branded as we dive into stories from all walks of life in the hopes of you discovering what your grit is.